Hello, hope you're well. The other day I was in the supermarket and I stumbled upon chocolate butter. I didn't even know this stuff existed. I mean, I guess it's probably quite easy to make yourself, but let's have a look at it. Chef quality everyday butter. So the ingredients are butter. You'd hope so, but that's 74% of it. Then it's icing sugar, cocoa powder, it says 6%, light brown sugar, lemon juice, 1% salt, plus some vanilla extract. Look at that. It actually is a block of chocolate butter. It's slightly weeping as well. Oh gosh, it is weeping, isn't it? That does not bode well for what I'm trying to achieve today. Oh, that's pretty good. Starting to question if I could just like make my own by mashing cocoa powder into butter, but that's another story. And, oh, that's really nice. I had a squidgy texture. Look, this is a block of standard butter. That is rock hard. If I try and press my finger against that, it's like pushing against a brick right now. Obviously, it will settle to room temperature. However, if I did that with the chocolate butter, it was actually had a bit of give in it already, even though it's been in the fridge overnight. Which, for what I'm gonna try and attempt over the next 2 days, might not work in our favor. So the other day we did 3 levels of cinnamon roll, and one of them involved a ready-made puff pastry for a laminated dough, and we talked about the differences between that and an enriched buttery dough. Now, I've only made puff pastry homemade a couple of times, but every single time I've done it, it has been absolutely phenomenal, like so worth it. It makes you value the effort that you put into it, building up all those layers for the lamination, those steam pockets of buttery, airy goodness versus, well, the laziness of buying a ready-made sheet. But yeah, it's all about keeping the butter and the dough nice and cooled so it doesn't merge together into the dough and effectively reduce the chance of that creating the puff in the puff pastry. Now, having butter like that, which is probably better as a face pack, is gonna make it slightly trickier to work. In fact, if it works at all. If this does, we might have invented chocolate butter croissants. Hey? Come on. Well, one thing I have got today is time on my side. Well, I'm gonna need it because for the next 2 days, our journey starts here. So we're gonna start off by making our croissant dough. I guess success based on this video is if it results in something that's edible, but I'm really hoping we get these chocolate bands through the final one. Almost like a self-chocolating croissant. Some sugar, a sachet of instant yeast. I'm gonna trust what some of you guys have been telling me that I've been like worrying a little bit too much about salt and yeast, okay? So I'm gonna mix them through initially. I tend to get like 2 groups of you guys. Some of you are like, yeah, don't put the salt anywhere near the yeast. It seems to be a slightly bigger majority are like, nah, don't worry about it. So I'm just putting in a little shimmy of salt. I mean, there's a lot of flour there anyway to kind of mask it. Right, in here is some milk, but we need to top it up a bit with some water. This is all cold. We're not rushing the proving, all right? There we go, that's about 280 ml in there, give or take. So we're just adding in the milk and the water and stirring this together as quite a rough mix initially, just to hydrate all of those ingredients. So it's not about kickstarting the yeast at all, because we do also add butter into this part, and I'm gonna use normal butter for this because I want my base dough to at least have some sort of strength. Just getting it combined with the water and the milk, that's gonna sort of hydrate the dough. Whereas when we add butter in a moment, someone actually explained to me that by adding the butter now would coat the gluten. I don't know if that's right, but I like the sound of it. It just looks like a massive piece of cauliflower now, but I've been told to just leave it there and leave it rough. Not the smoothest looking dough right now, but the butter will go in about 10 minutes. We've got our butter here. Oh my word, come on. Look, it's weeping. It's actually getting emotional. It doesn't want to be a croissant. Texture slightly of a truffle. I don't know about this, guys. And it's gonna be quite a time consuming process to find out either way if it will or not work. But chef's choice this, apparently. But, oh look, it's just crumbling off already. Look at that, oh no. And this has been in the fridge overnight. I feel like I'm playing like chocolate butter Tetris here. Just trying to get it quite level. Because this is something called, I think it's the Tourage, which I believe is actually French for the lamination process. So basically enabling the dough and the butter to effectively get in layers stacked together, which creates the puff pastry. So anyhow, we'll get our other baking parchment on, and now an attempt to merge it together. Oh, so gummy, look at that. That's not butter. That's batter. So we need to keep this really, really cold, which is why this is gonna go in the freezer. Next to my sausage rolls, and actually a random little few pieces of glow-in-the-dark lemon meringue pie. Anyhow, look, I put this in just a moment ago. I got like chocolate smeared all over the handles. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's go back to the normal butter, shall we? That, I guess, has hydrated. Hopefully you guys approve. So this is some butter that I've cubed. I've actually just left it at room temperature. And it's interesting. The texture of this is almost the same as the chocolate butter once it's been in the fridge, which, like I say, is really not good for homemade puff pastry. This could be a massive fail. Alrighty. Nice clean mixing bowl. And we need to let it rise. That might actually take around about 2 hours, which I hope by that time our chocolate butter should be frozen into a lovely chocolate matte. Well over 2 hours later, check this out, sat above Mike. Look how much that has risen. Haven't you grown? You used to get offended by that when relatives would say that to me. I'd be like, you mean I'm getting fat? Thanks. Oh, smell that. I'll smell it for you if you want. Buttery yeast. Delicate, smooth, but you can see there's a little bit of strength there. And actually, it's still a teeny bit cold. And I was thinking, do I put this maybe in the fridge itself just for a moment? Because even with this being warm, it could actually melt the chocolate butter. I think a little 10-minute chill in the fridge is certainly not going to harm it. I don't want the butter to hit it and be like, oh yeah, frying pan. Blech. Well, one thing I did do other than wash up in my 2 hours plus of waiting was found my tape measure. So we did the square roughly 20 centimeters. I'm not going to measure that. So 20 by 40. 20 by 40, roughly. I'll give myself some slack. So I'm going to flour down and just stretch it slightly. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, that's like bang on. If this is the one thing that goes right during the whole video, I hope it's not the case. Because that is like a blooming credit card. Okay. Right, down you go. A little bit of pastry either side. Peel off this part. Oh my gosh. And I think the first one, I think it's called like the book fold. Bring that to the center. Stretch it a bit if we've got to. I have to. Oh my gosh. If I just pinch over the sides here to make sure that we encase that chocolate butter mat in there, that's all we're trying to do is just completely encase it. Just a little encouragement. And then we do the book fold. Sorry, that was encasing it. Let's have a go. Please don't burst out the sides. Please don't burst out the sides. We want to try and roll it again to a similar distance. My tape measure's completely gone out. It's like, what? Oh, come on. I'm now going to go in and then over the top like so. Oh. Come on, mate. Come on. That is it. And the good thing is when you make homemade puff pastry, you can either now put it in the fridge for roughly half an hour before we move on, or the freezer, which we are 100% doing with that butter in there. Right in there with me sausage rolls, which I will have to move to the house freezer soon. That went actually okay. I'm really trying to avoid that butter merging together. So by doing all those folds, you're getting those bands of butter in between the layers, which creates that lamination. Oh, I think that's right. All right, here we go. Fold number 2, which is the final one today. And I think I might have gotten round. There's like a letter fold and a book fold. Whichever one I did before, I don't think it matters, right? What the hell was that? Press this down again. But I'm starting to see, and when I've made homemade puff pastry before, you get like the smears of the butter you put in there. I can see little dark patches of the chocolate butter. Look at this air bubble. I'm pushing it literally down the dough. Like, give me throwbacks of whenever I wallpaper. Quite like wallpapering. Sorry, I know it's a bit of a diversion. The first bit into the middle, but all these layers of butter, and then straight onto there like that. Look, just imagine that. All the butter has already been in there with those folds already. Again, if we were confident, we could probably push on now and roll it out. One more chill. I'm not gonna sit it directly on the freezer bottom because one half, which is why I had to wait a couple of minutes, got absolutely rock cold. And that is why they're going in the freezer. My sausage rolls are going in the house. All right, here is the last one. That's what we want. That's what we want. I'm sort of prodding it, but it's getting warmer by the second. That looks insane. So now what we've got to do is cover it in cling film to rest in the fridge for 24 hours to kind of let the butter have a really good set and hopefully try and fuse these lamination layers together. Alrighty. My hands feel really warm. It was really changing in texture towards the end. I'm so glad we're getting it chilled. I've got flour all over me. I'll see you in 24 hours. Good morning, folks. It's 10 to 1. So around about 1 o'clock yesterday was when I finished those steps. So it's been a full 24 hours. Although this morning I came in and it was actually quite inflated, so I knocked it back a little bit. Don't know if I should have done that. However, we've still got that marbling on there. Look at that. And you can see, look, it almost looks like a piece of steak. I'm gonna tidy it up slightly. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Can you see the lamination? Like the layers of butter, we can actually see it. That's the whole point of this video. Right, we've succeeded. I suddenly just feel like I'm at a butcher's. Right, it's going in the fridge. Just to buy myself a little time, a little thought, okay? Oh, I'm quite nervous. This is where it could fail and I'm worried. Because what I'm doing is bringing to the boil some water, which is actually going to slightly warm our oven. We're not going to warm up the oven, we're actually just going to let the steam from that naturally warm it up. Now I'm really worried because that should actually start to get the yeast going to form its final kind of shape. But we're supposed to leave it for about an hour, and if I do that, it could all melt and mingle together. So I'm going to do that with a couple of our croissants. The rest, I've got no idea. Yeah, this is actually quite an important step because if we just put them in cold, I think that affects the rise, and I don't want to risk that. All right, so this oven is about to see, hopefully, quite a bit of action. So if we just stick it down there, but we still need to make those croissant shapes. We basically take a line to create 2 triangles. We roll it and try to keep it as straight as we can. Oh my word. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Right. That's going in the fridge. Whatever happens now, I am over the moon with how these look. I mean, look at the edges there with the chocolate butter fused in there. So we've got 8 in the fridge. It's like Barry's patisserie. And of course, when you get to this step with normal croissants, you could bung them in the freezer for another day, which sounds like a really good idea right now. So here we go. 3. Oh, they look so good. Oh, that is actually really nice and warm. That was an amazing tip one of you guys gave me. Let's see what happens to these. Now, unfortunately for me, that's going to take a solid hour and a half of uncertainty, but we want to see if we can get that yeast working. They will hopefully puff up a little bit. If we bake them straight away like that, they're going to be cold and not really get that oomph. That's the technical term, all right? Je suis serious. Actually, I've just had one other idea what we can do. This is another one that's been in the fridge for a little bit, but oh, I forgot to say, well, I am sitting them all down on the tail or seam or whatever it is. That last little bit, make sure it's sat on that. But this one, I'm going to take the risk and leave it to go to room temperature to see if it naturally rises like, well, it did for about 2 hours yesterday. But if this is as good as it gets, look at that. Like, that is absolutely awesome. I don't actually know what happens when you bake chocolate butter. You know, like chocolate can burn quite easy. Imagine we go to all this effort and it's just burnt. That would be very on brand, wouldn't it? But just to show you already, the room temperature ones, that's actually quite a big size difference already. But the reason we want to do it in the oven ideally is because that steam, that moisture, kind of like gives like an even like territory for the dough to evenly rise. Plus it gives it moisture, which stops kind of like, I mean, we've got this covered. These right here are more dried out. The other 2 are in the house oven, again with the boiling water underneath, and it really is puffing up. Check this out. Look at the size difference in them. There are, if I just touch it there, that is extremely delicate. Now they've done their rise, we can actually put them back in the freezer because that will help lock those layers together, but also help us when we come to our egg wash just before we bake them because it will cling to it. Right, I'm sure that made sense to me. Nice and chilled, and what I'm going to try and do is get it all over the baking tray. Nice one, Barry. I'm going to brush the tops here, but I'm going to try not to brush the sides, you know, where the actual layers of the chocolate butter are visible. It could disturb those layers, so I'm going to just try and avoid them as best I can. I've always been quite scared of baking in general, but there's always been this like craving to really get into it and like do some like pretty cool stuff, and this is quite a step up for me. I know probably some of you guys are like master bakers and laughing at me, but genuinely, if this works, I'm gonna be so happy. They are going in there 15 minutes. I really want this to work. It's been a crazy 28-ish hours. I didn't sleep very well last night, but now, it might now all be worth it. Just for my curiosity, we're gonna bake the other remaining ones. This is one that has been in the fridge the entire time that I've used for comparison. This is one that was sat at room temperature. This is also one that was sat at room temperature, but I stuck it in the freezer for 10 minutes. And these two were steamed in the oven like the other three with a pan of water in my house kitchen. I have to be honest, it smells insane in here. Like really buttery. I feel like I just walked into France or something. It smells so buttery and amazing in here. It is time to get them out. I've not said stonking for a while, and I feel like that deserves stonking. Ha! Need some new oven gloves. Goodness me. Look at that. That is phenomenal. I am so happy, relieved. That is insane. I cannot believe this has worked. You can see the speckles of the cocoa powder running through it now. Are these like self-chocolating croissants? I always say if I can make it, anyone can. Like that's the whole point of my channel, laugh and learn about the world of food, right? We have some fun, but this is pretty good, guys. I'm kind of hungry. It's just layers and layers of croissant that is slowly getting cold. We must eat. No, thanks for focusing on me. All right, I'm a little bit close on these, so they look actually bigger than they are, but these are our other 5. In fact, the one where we just left it in the fridge has actually turned into an acorn, like in Ice Age. This is a room temperature proof and then 10 minutes freezing. This is the same without freezing, and I actually think this one has turned out better. And at the back here, we've still got the other ones that we did this steam method on. They are all good in their own way. So conclusion, if you fancy rushing it, just shove it in the fridge and bake it straight away. I do truly believe though, and these are probably about 25% bigger, it is so worth the effort. But let's find out if this whole thing was even worth it in the first place. Here we go. The crunch. Oh, that's a croissant. Oh, it's all golden and flaky. Absolutely delicious. I do have some bad news though. I can't taste the chocolate at all. Now I will say, from the nibble that I had of the butter, it did taste like a ganache in some ways, but in fact, it tastes like I almost ate a spoonful of cocoa powder. There is traces of it. It didn't burn. I kind of now want to do this with like jam and Biscoff and other things, and there's different variations we can do, sweet and savoury, so maybe I'll do a follow-up. I mean, they truly do look out of this world, and let me try again. There is a bit of chocolate taste there. It's an absolutely gorgeous croissant. I bit into a nugget, a whole chunk of the chocolate there, and I did get a slightly better taste then, but it is dark and rich. But of course the way around that is to just halve it and spread some chocolate spread on there, or jam or whatever you have with your croissant, if anything at all. I quite like a plain croissant. I like a chocolate chip one, and I was hoping that would potentially replace it. Not quite, and perhaps to take it up an even notch, I could put chocolate chips in there. I think I'll suggest that on my type up. But there we go. Did we achieve chocolate butter croissants? Yes. Did they taste of chocolate? Yeah, 25%. And that's fine. It's like a rich elegance to it. I feel like we've used the freezer loads in the last 2 days, but of course they will. You can bag them up and they will freeze and keep. So if you want to try this, I will type up the recipe. Thanks so much for watching. Comment down below what you thought of the video. Maybe give it a like if you enjoyed it. And if you want to set me another baking challenge, let me know, because I really enjoyed this today, and I'm not going to take another bite. I really want to. It smells amazing, but I need a glass of water. Cheers, guys. I've just remembered I've got some dough. I don't think this is very good, but I have got some chocolate chips in the house, so maybe if I'm making chocolate croissants, I want a bit of chocolate taste in there. Oh, what a crunch. Oh yes. We must do that. That was exactly what I was hoping for. Gooey, warm, melted chocolate running through it rather than just tasting like a croissant. I'll add that to the notes if you want to do it. If you want a plain croissant, chocolate butter optional. Cheers.